When you ask people what edge compute is, you get a range of answers. Cloud compute and DevOps with devices and sensors, the semiconductors outside the data center, including connectivity, AI, and a security strategy. It's a stew of technologies that's powering our vehicles, our buildings, our factories, and more. It's also filled with fascinating people that are passionate about their tech, their story, and their world. I'm your host, Pete Bernard, and the Excelsior Show makes sense of what edge compute is, who's doing it, and how it can transform your business and you. So let's get started. Okay, and we'll edit this thing. I'll edit the audio at the end of the day. We'll get 20
If it doesn't work, we can always redo.
We'll make it work. So it's fine. Great. Well, great to see you again. I think the last time we saw each other in person was at MWC in the fall.
Yes. Been a while.
Long time ago. So lots of things have been happening since then. Why don't we start with kind of as a good warm-up, what's the Patricia Feng origin story? Give us a little of how did you get to G&D doing what you're doing right now? Because I know that you were Alto and Gem Plus and all these other places. And so give us a little of the origin story and let the listeners know who you are and what your deal is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Patricia Feng. I've been with G&D for almost 7 years, but have been in industry for like 23 years approximately. And I would say I never leave SIM card environment. I think I'm just falling in love with SIM card. And I never get bored. I would say when I started, it was a very simple GS spec, and it's at a GSM and a standard, and there's only 2 spec that we need to read about SIM technology, 3GPP 11.11, 11.14. And then nowadays we continue to evolve to LTE, CDMA migration, and then 5G, etc. So, and also in between, there's the NFC kind of the emerging technology coming in. So I never got bored in this SIM environment. It just has been technology just enlightens you, and there's more use cases enable us to continue to think what is connectivity, what is connectivity enablement, and how the secure environment is kind of essential to all the different use cases. Right. So that's about me. I'm originally from Taiwan and then moved to US for school and then continue the journey in US. I would say I'm rooted now in San Francisco Bay Area. And still in love with the technology, happy to help the whole ecosystem to make the IoT space secure, the connectivity space exciting, and also utilizing all the AI technology to kind of processing the data to help us to make better business decisions. Yeah,
well, that sounds great. So you sort of found your niche and you kind of doubled down on that, and now you're an expert. So that's good. Good. Career, you find something that resonates with you, you get really good at it, and then you just keep going, because I think the stuff that you're involved with is pretty universal. I think we'll talk about security and connectivity, and these are like foundational pieces of the whole technology world, right? And so to become an expert in that over the years is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, in the Bay Area. I lived in the Bay Area for about a dozen years or so, in San Francisco proper. I started in Palo Alto. First lived in Palo Alto and then north, but it's a great area. I think for people that are listeners that have never been in the Bay Area, it's definitely a nice place to visit. So
it's a very exciting place. I think a lot of new initiatives come from the Silicon Valley, and it's just exciting to be at the front of the technology, and there are new uses coming out, and then kind of trigger you to think, okay, what should we do next? So we're kind of like the front line, and then trying to get all those requirements and new innovative ideas coming in, and then reshape our product offering from a G&D perspective.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the Bay Area and Silicon Valley is the ecosystem is kind of all around you. I mean, it's your neighbors, it's the parents of the kids in school. It's like that's who you're working with in many cases. So it's such a tight community down there, such high density of tech folk.
Yeah, definitely.
So that can be kind of fun too. And then G&D, the company you work for, is actually based in Munich, right? So that's a cool city. You get to Germany often, or what's your frequency on that?
I go there more and more often. Used to be once a year, and now it's like probably 2, 3 times or 4 times. I love the culture of GND. It's very family oriented, and as you know, we actually are the innovator of the SIM card. And then also under the GND family umbrella, we're on the currency technology, e-payment, banking, and also secure identity now, as well as the mobile security front. So my side of the territory is focusing on mobile security to help the kind of like a connectivity areas to enable the ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think security has become such a pervasive topic, sometimes overlooked. I mean, sometimes we don't talk about security until there's a problem, but sort of designing it in from the beginning has become so important. And there's things like hardware root of trust and the whole concept behind the SIM. By the way, for people that don't know what a SIM is, we could talk about that for a while, but that little piece of cardboard that's in your phone, that's a SIM.
Yeah.
There's eSIM. And so it gets a little more hypothetical, but basically there's a set of credentials on a little thingy inside your device that's on a cellular network. And G&D, as you mentioned, like basically invented the SIM, or was one of the pioneers in that space. And that's kind of the foundational piece of security, right? Is authenticating what is this thing that's connecting into the network, and why are they, and how are they authorized to do so, right? So, I mean, what do you see as the new baseline in security these days in terms of connecting things to the cloud? Like what's the best practice these days?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the type of devices and the use cases. The demand of having a device that is always connected it's a trend that the whole ecosystem is looking forward to. So I would use a very simple thing like your blood pressure machine or your weight scale at home that insurance company may start looking into, hey, are you really tracking your blood sugar properly, your weight properly? And then the doctor may also wanted to track you down to make sure you're really following the guideline, etc. And then traditionally, all those devices are kind of using a Wi-Fi or even not connected. It's kind of synced to your mobile phone with the app, etc.
Yeah.
But it's not a very streamlined process to make sure that all the data are securely shared among different parties that can be used for different purposes. So we start seeing insurance company interested about those connected things to help them to make a better proposal or help the clients or even the corporate to make a better business decision. So it's a very interesting way to see how the SIM card was traditionally just to help you to call somebody.
Right.
Then eventually we can start doing SMS, short form message, like you can text each other. And now you can do video call thanks to the network, etc. And now it's expanded all the way to your smart city, like the street lights, right? You wanted to be sure that it's smart enough to turn on when it's supposed to turn on. Or when the network is down, then there's a kind of contingency plan to trigger the light to be kind of reboot, etc. All those requires a very stable or consistent connectivity in order to transform those data to the backend, and then backend can do the additional processing and make the necessary change.
But the key is to make sure that the street light is authenticated to say, I am allowed to be on this network, right?
Exactly.
Information. And without that, if everyone just kind of hops on a bunch of free Wi-Fi or whatever, then who knows who's talking to who, right? And where the data's coming from. That's one of the challenges I think that we have when we start connecting these things together, right? Is like, how do you make sure you authenticate each element on the network?
Right.
A street light or a toothbrush or whatever to say, I am I am who I say I am, and I am authorized to communicate this data, right? And I think that's probably a lot of what G&D has been focused on, right? Is kind of providing that kind of authentication, those credentials.
Yeah, we call that as a secure element. So it's kind
Mhm.
of outside of the device environment, kind of separate area to make sure all the data is stored securely. And we do have a unique ID, so that can really identify you as a you. We also store algorithm to make sure the encryption is done to make sure the communication from A to B is secure. So it's about authentication, also identification, and that's the beauty of the SIM card that can be applied to a different use cases.
Yeah. And I don't know if you heard about that whole toothbrush incident. It was like there was like 3 million toothbrushes in Switzerland or something that were infected with some code to do like a denial of service attack. Basically send a bunch of messages en masse back to the server to take out this company's servers or whatever. But they basically infected the toothbrushes with some code to communicate back. But that's an example of like kind of that's an unauthenticated device, right?
Right.
Right. That's kind of connected through Bluetooth, through your phone and yada, yada, yada. And even though it's convenient to do that, I think we're going to see a lot more kind of, I think, attention paid to authenticating all these things that are connected to the network to make sure they're authorized to do that.
Yes.
Kind of fundamental. So yeah, we, like I said, you only hear about security when something like that happens. Then hopefully we can flip the script a little bit. I'm sure that's what G&D is trying to do. Say, let's talk about security before there's a problem and not after the toothbrushes attack.
Yep.
Whatever. Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned SIM. So let's kind of go back on the SIM. As I mentioned, like most people think of the SIM as this little piece of cardboard that you stick in your phone. And used to be, I should have had some props with me. Well, we're only recording audio, so it doesn't matter. But there were like some decent sized squares of cardboard and they got smaller, like micro SIM. They got smaller and smaller. And now they're not even cardboard anymore. It's just an eSIM. It's just a chip on the board. That's a secure element. So like the new iPhones have eSIM, right? So maybe you can kind of give us a little education where the SIM has sort of evolved over time. And so where's it heading? And maybe it's already there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely. So if you look at the footprint of the SIM card, traditional SIM card, it's actually pretty big, right? It's pretty big from the board perspective. So that's the start of how we evolved from the traditional. I think the generation one was the ID size, like your credit card size. And I still remember my uncles using a phone and was like inserted the whole piece of credit card size card to the back of the phone. I think it was like Ericsson device generation one. And then they continue to evolve to smaller from 2FF, 3FF, and then 4FF. And then but honestly, it's still taking a lot of space. And you look at the SIM slots, it's actually more expensive than SIM card itself. So the device makers are thinking, okay, what are the other form factor we can think of? So you continue to evolve to the wafer level. It's just getting smaller, embedded form factor. And then now we are even looking into an integrated SIM. It's called iSIM, which is at the system chip level. And all in all, it's still to address, basically, I think the idea is to address different device type with the fact that devices are getting smaller, your watch needs to be connected. You don't want to have a bulky SIM slot, or even for security reason, you don't want people just be able to remove the SIM card. So for example, I sell you a data for your watch to be connected. I don't want you to take it out and put it into your laptop. Then you start using this connectivity for laptop purpose. So all those are the reasoning behind the sizes of SIM card. But if you kind of hear down those layers, the technology itself is still in there. The coming of the virtual eSIM, which is still required as a piece of security element on the device, because that's the backbone of the hardware. But the beauty of the eSIM is basically you won't be able to have this physical movement from one device to another of this physical piece of hardware. Become like a very seamless transfer, digital transformation from A to B, from one device to another. And I use SIM card, the iPhone as an example. If you got the new iPhone 15, for example, instead of like clicking on spot, you basically put two eSIM devices together, and then the eSIM will quickly transfer and seamlessly to the next device.
Mm-hmm.
So from connectivity provider's perspective, it's a very seamless user experience. Like I would say, if my grandma knows how to use it, then we're successful.
That's
Yeah.
a good bench.
Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned so not too long ago, phones had external SIM slots, like you said.
Right.
In some countries, especially like dual SIM phones are very common, right? You'd have kind of one SIM for roaming and one SIM for domestic, and you'd have a little SIM wallet out there, and people would have all their SIMs and swap them around. And then as phones got thinner, right, and you got to 10 millimeters and 8 millimeters or whatever, the idea of having this big bulky slot didn't really make a lot of sense. And then, phones also used to have removable batteries. So sometimes they put the SIM slot underneath the battery. Now phones don't have removable batteries because they're so thin. And so there's no place for the slot anymore. And like you said, it's expensive. You think about manufacturing the cost of a slot that you have to put a piece of cardboard in. That's quite expensive. So I'm sure everyone would rather just not do that. And like you're saying right now, they can put another chip on the board next to the SoC called an eSIM. And then eventually that eSIM will be integrated into the SoC as an iSIM, SoC integrated SIM. And that's where we're heading. So, but the concept is still the same, right? There's a secure element there where credentials are stored, right? And encoded and authenticated. So the network, when it connects to the device, says, can you please show me your credentials? And the device says, here they are, right? They're in this iSIM, eSIM thing. So it's kind of an evolution. It's funny you mentioned the credit card size SIM. That's even maybe before my time. I don't know. That's a long time ago.
I did see that before. Thanks to my uncle.
But no, I remember the SIM wallets and multi-SIM, especially across Europe. They were very common. I think less in the US. I don't think the US really ever had the dual SIM thing really ever caught on.
Oh, I do have to say, yes, I was in Taiwan back then. So maybe that's an Asian thing.
I know across Europe, like in Italy, and so they have SIM wallets, and it was crazy. But and it's interesting. And so there's also a back end. I think one of the things G&D does right is provide the back end infrastructure to sort of manage these credentials across multiple operators, right? Because there needs to be servers in the cloud, quote unquote, that are, managing these credentials, especially as you're roaming from one network to the other. And G&D plays a really important part in sort of stitching all that together. So I'm not sure everyone knows that. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. And so that's where things are heading. And then I guess the other part, the part B of that question is, when we talk about edge computing and IoT, things like that, anything connected to the cloud, kind of the most important part of the word in that sentence is connected, right? And so, none of this will happen unless there's connectivity. And of course, there's always, fiber, but the really interesting things are connected wirelessly. And that's where G&D comes in. And so where do you see sort of some of that heading we've got 5G standalone now being rolled out. That's interesting. But then 6G, but LPWA, LoRaWAN, all kinds of stuff. Like, what are the different ways people are going to be connecting things moving forward to the cloud and to the wired infrastructure? What's the perspective?
I think the rise of the private network is basically the very strong trend coming in for security reason or even for network expansion reason. So I would use enterprise example. Traditionally, if the whole factory is covered by a Wi-Fi router, to enable this whole facility is completely Wi-Fi enabled. You have to know, like, sometimes the Wi-Fi is not stable, not discounting the beauty of Wi-Fi, because my son cannot live without Wi-Fi. So, but they probably will need maybe a handful of like 50 Wi-Fi router to cover the whole factory.
Mm.
And with the concept of private network, you basically can shrink down that number of router into 10 or even 5 because it's actually serving wider environment. So and also they can ensure the private network is authenticated and secure. It can kind of, from enterprise perspective, the control environment as well.
Right.
And that expanded to a different network, right? And then the next trend that we are heavily involving to is the non-terrestrial network, the satellite network. So honestly, it's really thanks to the eSIM technology that continue to evolve from the traditional automotive use cases to consumer use cases that people start getting familiar with this eSIM concept. And now we're transitioning into the IoT space where they need basically the things that doesn't have a screen can be connected. So, and also if you look at the geographic, there is a lot of non-terrestrial area. So how do you make sure you can continue this connectivity journey securely from the land to the sea, even to the air? So that's where the beauty of the eSIM comes in, that can ensure that you can make sure that whatever this thing is traveling to or under what circumstances, that we always have a network that can make it connected and securely. Yeah.
Right. So kind of a multimodal way of connecting things. You mentioned, private networking. That seems to be a hot topic.
Yeah.
I read where that actually hospitals are looking at like private 5G networks
Yeah.
out of their infrastructure to augment the Wi-Fi, because there's always Wi-Fi in hospitals and it's always a little dicey. But getting back to sort of the security issue and authenticating devices on the network, there's probably no better way of really having that sort of security than having a private 5G network and having all your hospital equipment on a homogeneous, high quality of service private 5G network that's separate from the Wi-Fi network that all the patients are on, streaming Netflix and all this stuff.
Exactly.
But I've seen that as a hot area. And then you mentioned satellite too, which I think is also fascinating now that we have Starlink, we have Kuiper, Magnata, a lot of these folks that are shooting a lot of things up into orbit up there. They don't collide. I'm sure they figured that out, but a lot of things flying around the earth now that are connecting, sort of cell towers in the sky, basically. Right. And so that's probably another huge area for enabling, especially connectivity for, like you said, things in motion, things outside of sort of typical population centers too, right?
Yeah. And then if you see also another very interesting use case is all the electric vehicles, right?
Mm.
And then if you go to a national park, there's probably very low cellular coverage, depending on how high you drive up to, right? And then so Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi when you're in. Well, of course, people purposely to go there so that they can really be disconnected.
You want to go there to sort of stream the Netflix or.
Yeah, exactly. But then, generation has changed and there are different reasons why connectivity is needed. It's not just for browsing or Netflix, etc. It's actually for your security. How can we ensure that you still are being able to call for an emergency if you need to? Or what if my car breaks down or I had a car accident? There's still a way to connect to ask for help. So yeah, so basically I would say the eSIM continue to serve as the most trusted secure element on the device. And then we're able to address different network coverage and different assets as well.
Right. Yeah. And then you have the G&D infrastructure sort of stitching it all together on the back end so that
Yeah.
for the end user, they just stay connected or the device just stays connected regardless of where it is.
Yeah.
Light to terrestrial cellular to whatever.
Yeah, we have been working with the device maker community for many, many years. I would say this is also our expertise. We're not only managing the credential securely in the back end, managing the transaction of the eSIM, but we also work very closely with the device maker, module maker community to ensure their device is able to adopt this new eSIM transformation technology. So all in all, I see more devices coming in and different use cases, and that's where you see a different form factor of the SIM card comes in, different type of data processing power needed, etc. And like battery power device, right? How can you ensure this eSIM is not really draining down your battery? There are certain smart meters needs 20 years of lifetime. Your trackers being installed on the vehicle need 20 years lifetime. How can you ensure you have the flexibility to kind of find the best available network, but also retain your battery life? So all those are the things that GND have a bunch of SME behind that helping the whole ecosystem ready for the adaptation.
Right. Cool. And so I suspect you're planning your trip to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona.
Yes.
Very soon. What are you looking forward to at MWC? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I love Barcelona, and I'm sure many of us love to go to that event. I think that's the best time to pull the ecosystem together. Because nowadays, if you look at the opportunity of the thing needs to be connected, it's not, the whole ecosystem is getting complex. The technology is getting complex. And then this mobile world kind of gather all the expertise from different ecosystem. We all sit down to brainstorm to come up with a plan to what is a priority product line to make sure that, things are addressed and then prioritized in the next generation.
Yeah.
So we are actually sponsoring a lot of summits. We'll talk about how eSIM is evolved from automotive consumer to all the IoT. And we're also talking about how eSIM can enable the MVNO, the virtual network operator, even private network operators to bring this technology in and to onboard new devices that coming onto their network. And also talking about AI, right? SIM actually is a channel that kind of like enable the channel to collect those data. How can we ensure those can be utilized by the AI to make sure that we're helping the enterprise, helping the operators to make the right decision and provide better service to the end consumer?
Right. Yeah. Especially I would think like things like fraud detection and other kind of things. I mean, AI would really help going back to the security perspective, right? If AI could look at that kind of traffic from those toothbrushes and say that does not look right, some preemptive, repair or shutdown or something, I think that would be helpful. So I think we'll see AI pop up, especially in the telco space around fraud detection in kind of preventive maintenance, as well as, customer experiences.
Yes, definitely.
That'll certainly be a hot topic at MWC. It's great that you'll be driving some summits there. And like you said, the whole ecosystem gets together. And, it's kind of like speed dating. You can, one day, you get like 12 or 15 really good conversations that would have taken you 6 months otherwise. And so that's kind of exciting about Barcelona. Plus it's Barcelona.
Yeah.
Well, that's really fantastic, Patricia. I'm glad we were able to reconnect and catch up on some of these things. It sounds like G&D is kind of in the middle of the whole telco ecosystem, and not a lot of people know about G&D as much as they would know about an AT&T or a Vodafone. But one of the things that's important to understand is that companies like G&D are kind of the foundational kind of stitching together a lot of this stuff to make it happen. And so it's great to be able to talk to you and get some insights on that.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to have this chance to share our know-how and also explain who G&D is. We're a German company. We're actually very humble, but we deliver when we promise we can do it. It's the German culture.
There you go. Sounds good. All right. Sounds good, Patricia. Well, I hope we can reconnect in the near future.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Pete.
Thanks for joining us today on the Excelsior Show. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more, and check us out online about how you can scale your edge compute business.